Hey guys, Sebastian here from Noble Frugal Studio. This tutorial is going to show you how to time your animation and how to cleverly place your in-betweens to maintain the overall flow of your motion. We already got down the essential drawings such as the key poses, the extremes, and the breakdown in part 1. And if you haven't seen that yet, you can check it out here. This tutorial is going to focus on how to space out your drawings and add in-betweens that will complement the overall motion. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now that we have all of our drawings done, or our essential drawings done, our main poses, we can start timing our sequence. If you're wondering how long your animation should be, grab a stopwatch and perform the action you're trying to animate yourself. Imitating the motion that Kimi was doing took me around 2 seconds, 48 frames in total, so we know our action is going to last about 48 frames. We also want to keep in mind how many in-betweens that we planned to make. I'm going to animate this sequence on 2s, which means that every other frame will have a drawing on it. This means that all of our drawings will occur on odd numbers, such as 1, 3, and 5. So the goal here is to think in the context of your animation and decide roughly when each of your main poses will occur. So let me space this out. I'm going to start by spacing it out on 4s. I think that worked well last time. So our action is going to last about 48 frames, but we can be lenient on that. I can make it last a little less or a little more if I want to. But for this coming down, I want this to be kind of slow because I want her to ease into this down pose and then ease out into this breakdown. Breakdown passes by really fast and then it eases back into this. It settles back into the last pose. So I know this is going to last long and this is going to last a little longer as well. Let's space out 1. Make sure that that 2 lands on an odd number since we're animating it on 2s. So I just timed out this action. The animation doesn't have to look the best because we don't have any in-betweens yet, but we just want to get the feeling for each action. We want to ease out of here and then ease into 4. So we're probably going to want to give this more space actually. So this right here, if we plan out our frames, it gives us 2 in-betweens to ease into 3 and then 2 on the other side to get to 4. This is sort of the main event here. So we're going to ease from A to A1. It's going to be an ease in. We're going to ease out of A1 into C, which is a breakdown. Make sure we're going to mark that as a breakdown. From C, we're going to ease into B1 and then ease out to B. So you can really time any animation however you want. Oftentimes when you work in animation, you're handed the animatic and you're given a set amount of time to perform a certain action. So you have to work within that time when you work in animation. However, for this one, I just timed myself doing it in real life so I can get like a ballpark of what I'm going to be animating. And my final timing is 38. So I think that worked out pretty good. Okay, and the final step is number 5, in-betweening. This is the step where we can start introducing our ease in and ease out. The reason that we're using ease in and ease out is because most organic movements start slow, gain speed in the middle, and then settle into their resting position. We can implement this principle by using a timing chart to plot out the spacing and timing of our sequence. Remember that our animation is going to be on 2, so each frame will occur on an odd number. All of these drawings are going to be held for 2 frames, or about 1/12 of a second. So when we put more frames with similar spacing closer to our extremes, here and here, it makes the breakdown frame here in the middle appear like it's going by faster by contrast. Now that we've got the timing that we want to happen, let's get our timing chart down. So first we're going to go from A to A1. So we're going to make A occurs on frame 1. Let's draw that in there. Let's get a different, there we go. There's 1, which is a keyframe. Down to 11. So I definitely want to ease into this down pose. So we're not just going straight for it. So this frame that's going to be spaced in the exact middle between 1 and 11 is going to be frame 9. That way the biggest movement of this frame will be between 9 and 11 instead of between 1 and 3. We can keep easing into it and then it'll get right about the middle, about 9, and then kind of jump to 11 to show that we're gaining speed. All right, so let's put that on our chart. Spacing wise, 9 is going to be in the middle between 1 and 11. As for timing though, it's obvious that 9 is closer to 11 than it is to 1. But as for the spacing of our drawings, we want 9 to be the exact in-between between drawings 1 and 11. We don't have to circle that since it's an in-between. We're going to keep the trend going by making 7 in between 9 and 1. 5 is going to be in between 1 and 7. And 3 is going to be closest to 1. Now we have a nice natural movement that'll go from 1 to 11 and show Kimi easing into this down pose. Okay, so what about 11 to 17? Since we want 17 to look like it's going by fast and we only really have 2 frames here, I'm probably going to make a few frames favoring 11 so they can start really, really slow, zip by, and then get slower as they reach 4. So how do we introduce a favor? Well, let's start with our chart. We have 11, which is an extreme. So let's make it extreme with power effects. Down to 17, which is a breakdown. Now, instead of putting a frame that's going to be spaced right in the middle, like we usually would, I'm going to put the frame spacing closer to 11. So this is going to be drawing 15. And then drawing 13 is going to be favoring 11 again. So we have 13 and 15 both favoring 11. So it's going to start really slow. Then it's going to gain a lot of speed because 13 and 15 are closer to 11. And I'm going to do the same thing for 17 to 22. We're actually going to favor 23 right here. All right, so let's make our chart for 17. 17 up here is a breakdown. Let's get this down to 23, which is an extreme. We're going to be favoring 23 so that the breakdown can go by really, really fast. So that means 19 and 21 are going to be down here. I think that'll add some snappiness to our animation. As a last call for timing, I'm probably going to stretch this final frame B down to 31. Let's do that. I kind of wanted to mimic the timing that we had from A to A1. So they're definitely not identical, which is going to make our animation seem a little more interesting because it's not completely even, but I just wanted to stretch this out a little more. And we can make that call since we haven't written our chart for it and we haven't started in-betweening. So from B1 to B, let's write our chart. 23 is an extreme all the way down to 31. I want to make sure that 31 is a keyframe, so we circle that. And we're going to have this ease into 31, so it settles all the momentum that we gained from this fast-moving breakdown. So how do we do that? Well, that means the frame that's going to be in the middle, that's going to appear like it's in the middle, is going to be 25, spacing-wise. Then we have 27. We're just going to ease out evenly, so we can represent that by making these jumps. And then we have 29 closest to the final frame. All right, this looks good. I hope it makes sense to you guys. If it doesn't, definitely leave a comment below. I'd be glad to help as many people as I can, but if I don't get to you, someone who knows will also be willing to help you there. I think once we start putting this in practice, it's gonna start making sense. So let's get in-betweening. So in order to draw 7, 5, and 3, we need to draw 9 first. You see, we're gonna take it from here to here. Because since 7 is half of 9, we can't draw 7 without 9, so let's draw this one first. I want to make sure that we're following the chart, and according to the spacing aspect of this chart, because the numbers represent the timing, but the lines represent the spacing, 9 is supposed to be an equal half between 1 and 11. So let's draw something that appears to be the exact middle of 1 and 11. Again, instead of using onion skin a lot, I'm just flipping back and forth, using my eye to track the motion of all Kimi's features. Honestly, I just think the drawings turn out better when you do this instead. Also remember that certain parts of the body don't move the same way, like the eyes are really quick. They're not going to move the same speed as everything else. Because if we ease everything with the same speed, the eyes are going to look like they're going really, really slow. So we just got to keep that in mind. And frame 7 is the exact middle between 1 and 9. So 1 and 9. So let's start on that. Sometimes when the differences between frames get really thin, you can use the onion skin there and it won't cause any problems. But whenever you can, try that flipping out technique and tell me how it works. All right, time to move on to 5, which is in between 1 and 7. As we just finished that ease in, it looks pretty good. Let's see. Once we add more to the rest of the animation, it's probably going to look really good. And so you can see it kind of slowly speeds up. All right, so next we have 11 to 17. And since we want 17 to go by really fast, I decided to favor 13 and 15. All right, so in order to get to drawing 13, we need to do drawing 15, because drawing 15 is the initial favor. So let's see what we can do. All right, so far looking really good. It's looking definitely very smooth. And I think we did a good call on the timing. I think the favoring was a good call. So let's keep going and see where we can take this. Since we're easing into 23, we have to draw 19 first in order to draw 21. So let's get that done. So we are favoring 23, meaning the drawing that we're going to make, 19 is going to be closer to 23 than it is going to be to 17. You want to make that 17 go by really fast. All right, so we're going to draw somewhere up here is where our favor is going to be. So I'm probably going to start like right there. Looks pretty good. I'm going to start with that top shape that Kimi has to her head, and then we'll go from there. Now, since I'm dragging this hand behind, it's really not going to favor this frame too much. That's part of the overlapping action of the arms, so don't worry about that. If you're familiar with the 12 principles of animation, you'll probably understand what I'm doing. I'll make sure you track the motion of these arcs. So it's going down like that. And so then we want to favor this right here, but continue to keep that arc. Okay, finally we have B1 to B. So what I want to do is ease into B. So that means that our middle frame is actually going to occur on 25 because we want to have it slow down close to B. So we put more frames at the same spacing, we put more frames that are closer to B than they are close to B1, which is represented in this chart. We're going to do an even ease in. So in order to draw 27 and 29, we need to draw 25. So let's get that done first. So it looks like the arc going from B1 to B is sort of like this for each feature. So we're going to try to replicate We're gonna try to reflect that in our in-between. Yeah, it looks like we're going that way. So that means the in-between for this would not be here. That's just a straight line. We want to make sure that we're maintaining that arc, so we're going to put it somewhere around here. So right now I'm just marking the areas that I need to in-between instead of actually drawing. I think that'll help, so we don't get that clearly onion skinned looking in-between. In-betweening can take a really long time, so I usually draw the body in a different order for each frame. Sometimes I'll start with the head, then I'll move to the belt. I guess you could do it systematically, but this just helps me keep it from being very monotonous. Now 27 is a perfect half between 25 and 31, which is B. Again, we want to make sure we're maintaining the arc, so this in between of this circle of the arm would not be here, but here, so we can maintain this arc motion. Alright, finally we have frame 29, which is our very last in-between, and I think I'm probably going to be using onion skin for most of this because the gaps between these frames are just so thin that we're going to get a decent drawing either way, but I'm still going to be turning it off from time to time just to check that I maintain the volume of our character on each of her features. Alright, let's get into it. Did notice that this mouth right here doesn't follow the arc that I wanted it to, so it starts here, ends here, kind of takes a detour, and I think it's this one was going straight when everything else was kind of curving, so we're going to make that curve as well. Perfect. Alright, and there we have it. With just these 5 components, we can make some seriously fluid animation. If any part of this process confused you, don't worry, because I plan to make individual videos for each of the subjects that I covered in this video. Those videos will be part of my free 2D animation course, which is coming soon. I plan to cover the 12 principles of animation, the 9 other more advanced principles, and make tons of exemplary demonstration videos for you guys to follow along with. With that said, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, consider joining my Patreon. I actually have another animation breakdown out on Patreon right now. I discussed the same things that I discussed in this video, but if you guys are looking for another demonstration, say something's not as clear as you want it to be, I definitely recommend that one as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Special thanks to Owen Art for supporting this channel on Patreon. If you want to see sneak peeks and the latest news about my upcoming short film Castle Dark, you can gain access to all Patreon exclusives behind the scenes posts for just $1 a month. All you gotta do is follow the on-screen link to my Patreon page. Thank you in advance.